Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com. This video will be day 3 of the first week of the Darkhorse training template by Alsruhe. If you've been following along with my videos, you'll know that I've switched over training programs relatively recently. Obviously we're only on the third day, to a more strongman style, power building style template in order to generate a bit more general level base strength. So on today's agenda, we'll be talking about the third day of the program. We're still in the first week, wave 1, week 1 of the Darkhorse program again. I'll leave the links for Alsruhe's video below, which explains all the intricacies and explains how the template was created and why you need to do certain things in a certain manner. That'll all be below, but for today I'll just talk about what I've done and how I thought today's experience went. So again, we skipped the conditioning section of the workout just because of the time constraints. So we moved on to the first giant set, which was front squats, sumo deadlifts, some side planks, and rowing for 30 seconds. So that's all performed in one giant set with about a 90 second to 2 minute break in between each progression there. We did focus on heavy fives today for the sumo deadlift. I haven't done the sumo deadlift in a couple of months now, probably closer to 7 months, something along those lines. So it's kind of nice to feel that different variation with the sumo deadlift again. It did shift a little bit of the focus to the quads. So we had front squats, which is a very quad dominant squatting movement, followed by the sumo deadlift, which is a more quad dominant version of the deadlift. So today was more of the accessory lifts are more targeting the quads, which was kind of nice. I do like that variation, mainly because my regular squat has been more of a lower bar back squat position, so we're doing a lot more hip dominant and glute dominant squatting position, and we're kind of taking away a little bit of the focus on the quads. So it's kind of nice to implement some quad focus in order to drive those quad gains, as it were. Also, because of my limited equipment in the garage gym, I don't have access to, say, leg extension, leg press, belt squat, things along those lines. So I'm stuck with doing somewhat limited range of movements in order to target different parts of my legs. So squats are fine for general strength in the whole body, obviously, but in order to get those quad focused directed movements, we have to shift over to, say, something like a lunge or a front squat, things along those nature. So it's kind of nice seeing that we are able to incorporate some more quad dominant movements in this workout program while still going pretty heavy and driving some volume as well. So the set rep scheme for today, we were doing sets of 12 for the front squat. So we hit 135. Again, the weight feels really light for the first 5 or 6 reps, and those last tailing reps that really drive me into the ground. Again, it's a sign of my poor conditioning, so hopefully the weight's able to drive up over the next couple of weeks, because that means my conditioning should be improving. I don't think it's necessarily a strength issue. I think it's like a pure strength issue. I think it's definitely more of a strength over time. So conditioning GPP, that endurance factor for outputting strength, is definitely lower. So this is something I'm hoping to improve with the program, is to increase that work capacity, as we can see with this really light weight being used for those volume works for the front squat. We did sets of 5 again for the sumo deadlifts for the volume sets, for the max effort sets. We did hit a top set of 365 pounds. I felt pretty good. The movement still felt a little rusty today, so I kind of kept the weight load a little lighter. Hopefully next week we're able to add a couple of extra pounds on there and really drive some weight up onto the sumo deadlift. And then we wrapped up with some ab movements, so the side planks, and then some conditioning. So if you notice, the way the workout is set up is you have an antagonist movement followed by the main movement with some ab movement, and then some conditioning movement after that. So I kind of the program is set up so that you can kind of plug in your own movements to kind of address your own preferences and hopefully address your own weaknesses. So my front squat, I know, is a definite weak point for me when compared to my back squat. I think there's a huge strength discrepancy. Even though we did do 12 reps today, even when we do some heavy singles and heavy triples, the weight differential is just giant. It's like a 60 to 75%, probably more closer to 60% weight difference between the two movements, which I think isn't that great. So hopefully this will help drive up some more of those front squat numbers and really help target in those abs and quads that are really dominant for the front squat there. The next movement is like an accessory movement for the deadlift. So you'll notice that today is deadlift accessory day. The way that Darkhorse template is set out, we start off with accessories and then we move on to the main movement, which is more of a dynamic movement. Dynamic movement for the main focus of the day. And I'll explain as to why that is. Well, I've explained why in the previous videos, but I'll do it again today. But again, we hit the sumo deadlift. Really good movement. I think it's a great variant for the deadlift. And then we're just throwing in different ab variations. I like to do whatever, I just kind of follow along with whatever was listed in the template there. I don't really need to change the ab movements. And then we just did some conditioning. Depending on the equipment that they specify in the program, I kind of had to switch it up. So I did just some rowing. We did kettlebell swings earlier in the week, so I didn't want to duplicate that. So we just did some rows for 30 seconds and popped that through. Next, we move on to the volume giant set. Again, if you'll notice from the first video of this series, I did not read the program correctly. A lot of things are changing in this program day to day and week to week, so definitely pay attention to what you're doing. I did an extra set for the max effort giant set part of the program, so I did dial back. I removed one set from the volume effort for today, mainly because I didn't want to do overload the workout. I just misread the program again like I did in the first week. That's probably going to be a common theme, but something you need to pay attention to. But we're able to hit 290 for a set of 12, and then 290 for a set of 10 for the following back off set. Ideally, we would have done another set of 290 at 10, but seeing as that I did an extra set of 365, I figure that's a great stimulus for today, and we'll call it a day after that. So I think, all in all, I think max effort and volume work right well. I'm enjoying this conjugate style training. And then we move on to the final movement of today, which is more of our dynamic work, and is the squat. So the squat's the main focus of kind of the day, but the way that Alsruhe programs it in the Darkhorse is that we decrease the heavy nature of that lift and we increase the dynamic nature of the lift. So we're switching over from moving heavy weights really slowly to moderate weights relatively quickly. So we do that by dropping the weight to probably 50 to 60% of our maxes, and then adding some elastic tension, some accommodating tension with either rubber bands or chains. I talked about that in my previous videos there, where we discuss why I would want to use bands or chains. Accommodating resistance is a great way to drive some dynamic effort in the movement, and is one of the pivotal principles of the West Side conjugate training style. One thing I do like with keeping the four main compound lifts as a dynamic movement is that it takes away the stress from the heavy loading that I've been doing in the past. So I'm really enjoying this lighter, faster style of squatting. So I'm not beating up my shoulders as much, and it's taking a little bit of stress away from the body, and just a little bit of a break in recovery, training something a little different, which is I'm enjoying quite nicely. So we did hit 235. It was a 10-minute EMOM, so 10 minutes every minute on the minute. We did fast triples at 235. They felt great. Again, conditioning's coming in, so the first six sets feel good. That 40-second break, 40 to 50-second break is plenty of time to recover, but towards the end of those 10 minutes started to really drive up that fatigue. So hopefully in the future we're able to drive up some weight while keeping the rest the same, and that way we're improving not only strength but our ability to output strength for a long amount of time. So that wraps up the training overview for today. I'm really enjoying the program so far. Day 3, we'll see how the rest of the week goes. So that brings me to some thoughts for after the training today. One thing I wanted to address was the hot topic issue of sumo versus conventional deadlifts. I think it's one of those hot button topics where people are either side of the fence, and there's some heated debates on the internet, which I think are kind of hilarious. Let me just open up by saying that it really doesn't matter. And I think that's based on a lot of my opinion and a lot of other opinions that I've read. But basically, if you're competing in a competition, a league, a federation that doesn't allow certain type of deadlift, then obviously you're not going to perform the other type of deadlift because you're competing in a rule. That's like me bringing a football to a basketball game and expecting to play. It doesn't work that way. So to say one is better than the other is not necessarily true. Both serve their different purposes, kind of like saying a screwdriver is better than a hammer or vice versa. Neither is a better tool. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Both are useful tools in the spectrum of weightlifting, and both are useful for developing strength no matter who you are and what you're trying to accomplish there, unless you're specifically targeting a conventional deadlift for your competition, in which case the sumo deadlift will have some benefit but not as much as training the conventional deadlift. Obviously, it's like saying I should practice soccer to get better at playing pool. Doesn't work that way, because strength is specific. But with that, when we take out the competition aspect of the deadlift variant, there is not really any difference. And just, I'll back it up. Just remember, we're doing arbitrary movements for arbitrary weights for everything about this endeavor we're doing, everything about strength development is arbitrary. Why do we pull from 45-pound plates? Someone created a 45-pound plate years and years ago, and that's the standard that we use now, but it doesn't mean that it's the best we use now. It's just that everyone uses it, so we'll continue to use it. That doesn't mean deadlifting with 25-pound plates is better or deadlifting with 35-pound plates is better. It's just what we've set up, so one is not necessarily better than the other. It's just what we've done, and it's just the nature of the deadlift and the way the equipment is set up. So following through with that, a sumo deadlift and a conventional deadlift are both very difficult to perform once you get heavy. It's not saying that a sumo is easier than a conventional. They're both quite difficult, because even if you can deadlift a certain amount of weight for one, it does take some skill to convert that strength over to another movement. So to go from sumo to conventional takes some skill development, some skill transition, but you still need that base level of strength. Just because I can conventional deadlift 135 pounds doesn't mean that same day I can go over to the sumo deadlift and deadlift 400 pounds. That's a ludicrous argument, and I think it is. We're getting into camps where we're so ingrained in what we think is correct that we're not opening our minds to see why the other side would not be as wrong as we think they are. So sumo, conventional, it doesn't really matter. Do whichever one you prefer to do, because if you can sumo deadlift 800 pounds, that's a great achievement. If you can conventional deadlift 800 pounds, that's still a great achievement. Both are huge achievements with whatever weight you choose to lift with each variant. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're picking up some heavy weights, that's all that really counts. You can use both of them in a training program. Like today, we're actually using the sumo deadlift as well as the conventional deadlift to target different aspects, but we're still using that hip hinge movement pattern to develop some responses in the posterior chain and just drive up strength. The same goes for any other type of deadlift variant. You want to deadlift with a trap barbell, you want to deadlift with some dumbbells, you want to deadlift with a kettlebell, you want to do all sorts of deadlift variants. None are better than the other. It depends on what your specific goal is. If you try and tell me to cut a piece of wood and you only give me a hammer, it's going to be really difficult for me to do that. So it is very specific and very relevant to what you're trying to achieve. To say that one is better is just, don't waste your time worrying about which one is better. Just do which one feels great for you and which one addresses your goals. Now, if you can read about which ones target which types of muscles. So you could argue that the sumo deadlift engages a little bit more quads, but it also takes a little bit of pressure off of the lower back because of the back angle, like a tiny bit. So if you're dealing with some lower back issues with a conventional deadlift, maybe you want to try doing a sumo deadlift until you want to go back to a conventional, or you just enjoy the sumo more, so you continue doing that sumo deadlift, which allows you to continue to train. Same thing goes with if you want to do a trap barbell or a hex barbell deadlift. If that allows you to train, keep doing that. Don't think that your training is lesser because you're not doing the standard conventional deadlift with 45-pound plates. Same with range of motion, if you experience lower back extreme pain at the bottom of a deadlift, but not, say, mid-shin height or like knee height, then continue to train that way. That's the whole purpose of training, is to improve yourself. And if you're doing half deadlift or rack pulls only exclusively, but that's the only way that you can train, then that's better than not training at all, or sticking with a 45-pound barbell from the floor. You're better off driving up the strength where you can and not stealing away gains from yourself by thinking that you have to do something the right way. There is no right way to lift weights. There's efficient and effective ways, but there's no typical right way to lift a weight. So I wouldn't worry about which type of deadlift to do. Do whichever one you want to do, which one you enjoy more, and which one would help you achieve your gains faster or more effectively as well. So stay tuned to this series. I will be doing some more training vlogs. I'll be doing some training videos after every single workout day. I'll put a playlist right here so you can check out the videos and stay track with my progress along the way. This has been Solomon from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.